All right, guys, welcome to the show. We are talking about the top 10 upside boom players for 2023 fantasy football. We're talking with the guys that are going to have the highest potential ceiling. So I look at players, right? And I say, hey, they performed pretty well in 22, right? Or the year before, whatever the year I'm talking about, the year before. And I see there's more of a ceiling to be had. So the 10 players I'm going to talk about here, I believe still have way more of a ceiling to be had. So there's more upside in them. Does that make sense? So when I'm looking at these guys, I'm looking, hey, they had a good year the year before, but there's a far larger ceiling. So they've got upside. Now, there's a ton more players in this, but I wanted to talk about this one, these 10 particularly, because they jumped out at me. Now, we are completely in the offseason right now. It's January. We're in the midst of NFL playoffs. And I don't really see the major upside again until after the NFL draft, because I see, hey, let's say I like a player here, and then all of a sudden the first round that team drafts another wide receiver. Hey, man, that guy's value, the upside is now limited, the guy that I just mentioned, because in the draft, they drafted a top receiver or something like that, right? So I take a look at the entire scenario and I say, hey, man, this guy has upside, this guy doesn't have upside. And I see it right after the NFL draft fully. But again, I wanted to go over these 10 players with you guys today. Have some fun here a little bit in the off season. All right. If you're new to the channel, make sure you guys do subscribe, thumbs up. And in the comments below, let me know which players you agree with, which players you think have upside this year. Now, some of these guys have upside and they're actually going to be pretty decent value, which is really exciting to know as well. Right. So let's talk about this, guys. Again, thumbs up really helps the channel, of course. And again, if you're new to the channel, make sure you guys are subscribed. All right, let's dive into this right now, all right? First one here is Javonte Williams. Now, that's the first guy that jumps out at me in regards to upside. And what makes me think upside is this, right? Last year, he got hurt, week 4, torn ACL. In season 1, he had himself a good year, 203 attempts, 4.4 yards per carry. It was pretty decent, but he was competing with Melvin Gordon and eventually taking that job potentially in 2022. But Melvin Gordon got hurt or released and Javonte got hurt, right? So things changed. In comes Latavius Murray. And in 13 games, Latavius Murray actually had 171 attempts, 766 yards, and 6 touchdowns. This is a guy that's washed up. Like, Latavius Murray has no business being on the field. And sure enough, still managed to put up safe numbers. All right. Now, this is not the young, hungry Javonte Williams that they want to run and utilize. And they haven't had an opportunity to fully get him going because the hindrance of Melvin Gordon. And again, the team had to play politics. They had to let Melvin Gordon play because he's the veteran, this and that. I think that's BS, man. They should have let Javonte run a couple years ago, and then now he gets hurt anyway, even though he was preserved in 2022. And in 2023, they better let him run wild because it was a lackluster year, to say the least, with Russell Wilson, that offense, and we're going to have to see what they do in the NFL draft. I definitely think they need more receivers. I'm not sure if Judy's a true wide receiver one, in my opinion. He's had some durability issues. Sutton's definitely not the solution. He's done nothing. And Russell Wilson's got to pick it up here, right? I don't know what they got to do here. I don't know if he's lost his swagger. I'm not sure. But either way, this team needs a boost for sure. But they have to run Javonte Williams. That's a big boost right off the bat. You know, get a good running game going with a young, hungry player. He should be good to go. I mean, getting hurt early in the season this past year into 2023, week 1, he should be 100%, right? 9 months to a year to heal that ACL. He's young. He's hungry. He's got to get going, right? So Javonte Williams is a guy that I see as a ton of upside for this season. Absolutely love the upside. He's going to probably be decent value this year because, again, didn't finish anywhere near the top 20 or 30. He was hurt. So the Chiefs are going to be sleeping on him, and I'm going to be looking for that value to see where I can get him. And we're going to have to see how the mock drafts pan out and where I put him in 16 rounds. But I'm seeing a ton of upside here. Again, a lot of this is predicated completely on that NFL draft, right? Because we're going to see if they acquire another running back. There's a ton of talent at running back coming in this season, all right? Again, if you haven't gotten the 16 rounds, you can pre-order it here below. right here below. Guys, there's a code, and it's going to be limited. It's called Early Line. You get to save yourself some money on the 16 rounds. I leave everything in there to help you guys dominate your draft. Link here below, right? Or head on over to thefantasyfootballcounselor.com. All right. Number 2 upside player here. And a couple of these guys are like, well, thanks, Captain Obvious. But not necessarily, because I still, like I said, I think these guys had a good year, some of them, and I still think there's more to be had. Now, we're talking number 2 here is Trevor Lawrence. Now, the thing about him that I liked is that he was top 10 in pretty much every category. 7th in completions, 387. Attempts, 7th as well, 584. 9th in yards with 4,113 yards passing. 8th in touchdowns. He had a pretty good touchdown to interception ratio of 25-10. 10th in rushing attempts, believe it or not. He had 62 rushing attempts. And I think he was tied with a couple other guys. 5th in rushing touchdowns. I believe he had 5. Okay. 7th in fantasy points, 295 points. So I'm seeing him top 10 in fantasy points. I'm seeing him top 10 in completions, top 10 in rushing attempts. He's a good balance of everything. He's in the top 3 in all these categories, but he's a top 10. So that tells me a couple things. He's still young. He's still developing. He's still hungry, but he's still producing, and he gets his team into the playoffs. Really, really attractive for me when I'm looking at a fantasy quarterback that he's got that type of caliber, that type of pedigree, that he's got that type of, upside to him for fantasy, because he's a guy that can get his team to the promised land potentially, and he's young, and he's got that, he was a first overall pick a couple years ago. So I'm seeing a ton of upside here. I got to see where I can get him for value, because again, everyone's going to be getting your Pat Mahomes, your Josh Allen super early. Maybe Trevor Lawrence falls a few more rounds, and that's going to be really attractive to me as a QB1 with that upside. So Trevor Lawrence, another upside boom type of player, okay? Number 3 here, we're going to be talking about him a little bit more on this podcast this year, is Travis Etienne. Now, the reason I wasn't high on Travis Etienne last year, a couple of reasons. Number 1, we hadn't seen him play in the NFL, right? He was hurt his first rookie year. So this was kind of like his rookie year this past season. In 2023, we've now got a season under his belt. We got the rapport with Trevor Lawrence, which is really attractive. Travis Etienne is a young, hungry guy. Now, he's got some fumbling issues, of course. That's going to be an issue when I'm looking at him. Now, he had 5 fumbles, 3 lost. That's something that's really, really a bit of a turnoff for me. So, but 220 attempts, 1,125 yards, 5.1 yards per carry, 5 touchdowns, 35 receptions, 316 yards receiving. I like him. And I look at it week 15 and 16, for example, he had 19 attempts and 22 attempts. So the attempts were there. Now, there was other running backs coming in being pests, but Etienne is the main guy, and that's what's attractive to me when I'm looking at Etienne. So when we're talking about a guy who I don't think has scratched the surface, well, I think he scratched the surface, but I think there's more ceiling to be had. Etienne's a guy, so I got to see where I get him for a value. As an RB2 next year would be really attractive if I can get him as my RB2 as part of a robust RB strategy. But we're going to see. I mean, things may change after the draft. I got to see what the Jags do. But the team has upside. The team has some upside and explosiveness. They've got Trevor Lawrence, and I think Etienne is going to definitely step up in 2023, all right? Number 4, you guys know it. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, and it's no secret for me. Kenneth Walker. This is a guy that didn't really get going until week 6. As I said, he was going to be the guy. 2nd-round pick. Rashad Penny, years to hours were not wild. I don't really care if Penny comes back. They got to run Walker. Now, they ran him 228 attempts, got over 1,050 yards, 4.6 yards per carry, 9 touchdowns on the ground, and you want to combo that with 27 receptions and 165 yards receiving. That's going to go up. His receptions got to go up. His receiving yards got to go up. His rushing touchdowns got to go up. His attempts are going to go up. I still think there's a ton of ceiling to be had for this young, hungry running back. Kenneth Walker, without a secret here, is going to boom this year. He's got a ton of upside, barring any type of injury. Hopefully he stays healthy. Love him, okay? Now, Kashif just have him top 10, which is kind of funny because they had him outside the top 40 last year, but all of a sudden they're jumping on the train. But if you got 16 rounds last year, you guys are pretty aware he is a stud, all right? Number 5 here, Jamar Chase. Now, the thing about him, when I talk about ceiling, we know the pedigree, the talent, he's ultra elite, great quarterback throwing of the ball. 12 games, 134 targets, finished 13th in targets last year. Over 1,000 yards, 1,046, 9 touchdowns, guys, all right? Now, again, you only played 12 games. Still managed to get 240-plus fantasy points and finishing 10th in fantasy numbers. Again, only playing 12 games. He is a true one there. Tyler Boyd washed up. I mean, they bring in Higgins. They use him a little bit more. Yeah, Mixon's kind of coming down a little bit. I'm not really excited about him in regards to overall stock and in regards to, I think, we've seen the best that we could see out of Mixon. So Jamar Chase, I still think the ceiling is there. Tons of upside, tons of opportunity. Going to be interesting to see what the Bengals do in the draft and how they finish out the season here. But I love Jamar Chase. Again, still finishing top 10, only playing 12 games. So you can see there's a ton of ceiling to be had with the young dynamic, probably one of, if not the best wide receiver in the NFL. All right. Number 6 here. I've talked about him before. Dameon Pierce finished 28th amongst running backs on a terrible offense. No way but up. Coaching change. They're going to get a quarterback, hopefully a top quarterback in this draft. He still managed to get 220 attempts, 4.3 yards per carry, just under 1,000 yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. He runs hard, amazing work ethic. And again, I'm excited to see what he does this year. He's got to be a focal point of the Texans offense if they want to start winning some games and at least finish over 500, right? They got to have somewhat of a winning record this year. They get the first or second overall pick, second overall pick in the draft. I don't know if it's going to be any trades, what's going on at the time of this recording. They get an early draft pick, right? Again, I think they're going to be looking at quarterback. They got to get a wide receiver. Maybe they pick up a one-off free agency. They need to pick it up this year. And I think, honestly, Dameon Pierce is going to be and has to be a focal point of this offense. New coach comes in, got to make a good impression, use your best player. As of right now, it's Dameon Pierce. Love him, love the talent. I got him in here as a boom player on this list, okay? Number 7, Jonathan Taylor. I know it's obvious here, but this guy's going to be slept on this year. He finished, 33rd in fantasy points. No way but up here for Jonathan Taylor. Now, he only played 11 games, still managed to get 192 attempts, 861 yards, and 4 touchdowns. 861 on the ground, that is. Now, the cool thing is, again, bounce back season. Last year, I told you, everyone was down on Henry because he was injured. And this year, Taylor got hurt, right? The offense was a mess. Quarterback situation suspect, to say the least. Matt Ryan was not the solution. Taylor was banged up. Wide receivers, I think they need to figure that whole situation out. Either way, Jonathan Taylor, I still think, has that top 3 potential, given the opportunity. If, again, keep giving him the volume. Let's see what they're going to do with that O-line. Are they going to make some improvements? Still some question marks. I don't know. But the ceiling is there for Taylor for a major bounce back, boom type of season. All right. 8, 9, and 10. I have some question marks here, but I still see the talent and the opportunity for these guys. Number 8, Christian Watson finished 39th. Only 41 receptions, 7 touchdowns, 611 yards receiving. But he proved that he can. He's a little raw, right? But it's going to take him some time. But now he's got that rapport with Rodgers. But we're going to have to see if they draft another wide receiver. Lazard obviously being shipped off. And I told you that with Lazard. Lazard's not a true one. If Lazard was good, he would have easily surpassed Devontae Adams. I know you're saying, well, Joe, you're crazy. No, if you're that good, right? Like if Justin Jefferson was on the Packers, you could see like there would be a battle at wide receiver 1. But Lazard couldn't even battle Adams, right? Do you know what I'm saying? So that, and everyone was saying going into this season, like Lazard is the guy. I'm like, Lazard's not that good, guys. He's just not, right? And that's why I was, really drawn into Watson. Now, Watson, very inconsistent this year, had a couple weeks where he was absolutely crushing it. But aside from that, this is the year he has to step up. But we're going to have to see if the Packers pick up another wide receiver and what happens there. And is Rodgers comfortable going into the season? I'm sure he wants to win a Super Bowl here with the Packers down the twilight years of his career. But again, Watson could really, really shine with him if, Rodgers gives him that opportunity. Ton of upside to be had here with the young guy. He's got to, secure the ball more, make sure he's not dropping balls, focused, honed in, and on the same page with Rodgers. If so, we've got a ton of upside here with Christian Watson, all right? Number 9 here, Chris Olave. Finished 24th, guys. 24th amongst wide receivers, and he had terrible quarterbacks throwing the ball. I mean, Andy Dalton, really? That's crazy. The guy is 6'1", 189 pounds, round 1 pick. We're talking about a guy that over 1,000 yards receiving in his rookie year, 119 targets, 72 receptions, tons of ceiling to be had. Again, the quarterback situation is a big question mark going into the season, but the talent, the opportunity is there. There is no other wide receiver 1. He is the guy. Chris Olave, a ton of ceiling to be had. Big time fantasy football boom upside player for 2023. And number 10 here, I have some question marks. Again, you guys can leave your number 10 here because I want to kind of leave this one open. But I'm going to throw a guy in there right now who finished around 20th amongst wide receivers. The guy is Michael Pittman. Similar to Taylor, didn't really have the opportunity. Am I sold as Pittman being a true wide receiver one? No, but I think he's a little bit better than Allen Lazard, and he's got that upside. Now, he only had, 96 receptions, just under 1,000 yards, 895 yards receiving, and 3 touchdowns. Again, I think the talent is there. I just think he needs a good quarterback. He needs to get that consistent volume going his way. The talent is there. I like his kind of yards after catch. He looks strong after he gets the ball. He has a nose for the end zone. But again, he didn't really get the opportunity to run this year on a mess of an offense that was the Colts. But obviously, they're going to make some changes at coaching, all around. They need a quarterback, right? The quarterback is a question, but I still see a ton of ceiling for Michael Pittman this year, all right? So again, drop a comment below. Let me know who you think has a lot of upside. These are 10 upside players as of right now, pre-NFL draft. And there's a ton more. I think Hopkins has a good year this year, right? There's a ton of other players that kind of jumped out at me, but we got to see where they land, what the situation is, who's throwing the ball. Too many question marks this early in the season, but we're having some fun here laying out the foundation. All right, guys? Subscribe, thumbs up if you're new to the channel. Make sure you guys are subscribed. All right? Drop a comment below. Let me know an upside player and get the 16-round draft solution at thefantasyfootballcounselor.com. We'll talk soon, guys. I'm out.